Chapter 4. What John Rance Had to Tell. It was 1 o'clock when we left Lauriston Gardens. Sherlock Holmes led me to the nearest telegraph office, where he sent a long telegram. Then he hailed a cab and gave the driver the address Lestrade had provided. "There is nothing like first-hand evidence," he remarked. "In fact, I've already made up my mind about the case, but we might as well learn everything we can." "You amaze me, Holmes," I said. "Surely you aren't as certain as you pretend to be about all those details you gave the detectives." "There's no room for a mistake," he answered. "The first thing I noticed was that a cab had made 2 ruts in the mud near the curb. It hadn't rained for a week until last night, so those deep impressions must have been made then. There were hoof prints, too, and one was much clearer than the others, showing a new horseshoe. Since the cab wasn't there this morning, it must have brought those 2 men to the house during the night." "That sounds simple enough," I said. "But how did you know the man's height?" "A man's height can usually be told from the length of his stride. It's a simple calculation. I saw his stride in the clay outside and in the dust inside. I also had a way to check it. When a man writes on a wall, he instinctively writes at his own eye level. That writing was just over 6 feet from the ground. It was child's play." "And his age?" I asked. "If a man can clear a 4.5-foot puddle in one easy hop, he isn't exactly old. The square toes jumped over it, while the patent leathers walked around. There's no mystery. I'm simply applying observation to ordinary life. Anything else?" "The fingernails and the cigar ash?" I suggested. The word on the wall was written with a finger dipped in blood. My magnifying glass showed that the plaster was slightly scratched, which wouldn't happen if the man's nails were trimmed. As for the ash, it was dark and flaky, the kind only produced by a Trichinopoly cigar. I've actually written a short book on the differences between 140 types of cigar and tobacco ash. It's exactly these details that separate a skilled detective from people like Gregson and Lestrade. "And the red face?" I asked. "That was a more daring guess, though I'm sure I'm right. But you mustn't ask me about that yet." I rubbed my forehead. "My head is spinning," I admitted. "The more I think about it, the more mysterious it gets. How did they get into an empty house? What happened to the cab driver? How could one man force another to take poison? Where did the blood come from? Why the wedding ring? And why write the German word RACHE? I don't see how all this fits together." Holmes smiled. "You've summarized the difficulties perfectly. Much is still unclear, but I'm certain of the main facts. As for Lestrade's discovery, it was a fake, intended to lead the police toward secret societies or socialists. It wasn't written by a German. A real German uses Latin script. This was a clumsy imitation. It was a ruse to distract the investigation. I won't tell you much more, Doctor. A magician gets no credit once he explains his trick." "I'll never think that of you," I replied. "You've turned detection into an exact science." Holmes flushed with pleasure. I noticed he was as sensitive to flattery about his work as a young woman might be about her beauty. "I'll tell you one more thing," he said. "The 2 men came in the same cab and walked up the path together as friends, likely arm in arm. Inside they walked around. I could see in the dust that Square Toes grew more and more excited, his strides getting longer. He was talking himself into a fury. Then the tragedy happened. That's all I know for sure. The rest is just theory. But we have a good start. We must hurry. I want to catch a concert this afternoon." Our cab wound through a series of dreary streets until the driver stopped. "That's Audley Court," he said, pointing to a narrow opening between brick buildings. Audley Court was not attractive. We walked through a courtyard filled with dirty children and hanging laundry until we reached number 46. A small brass plate bore the name Rance. The constable was in bed, but he eventually came to the parlor, looking irritable. Holmes took a gold coin from his pocket and played with it. "We wanted to hear your report firsthand," he said. Rance's eyes fixed on the gold. "I'll be happy to tell you anything, sir." He sat down and began his story. "My shift is from 10 to 6. At 1 o'clock it started to rain. Around 2 I walked down Brixton Road. It was lonely and quiet. I was thinking how much I'd like a drink when I saw a light in that empty house. I knew the place was supposedly haunted by the last tenant who died of typhoid, so seeing a light gave me a bit of a turn. I walked to the door." "You stopped, then walked back to the gate," Holmes interrupted. "Why?" Rance jumped in surprise. "That's true, sir. Though how you know it, I don't know. I felt a bit nervous being alone there, thinking maybe it was a ghost. I went back to the gate to see if I could see my partner's lantern, but the street was empty." "No one at all?" "Not a soul, sir. So I went back and pushed the door open. Inside, I found the candle on the mantel and the body on the floor." "Yes, we know the rest," Holmes said. "You walked around, knelt by the body, then checked the kitchen, and then—" Rance stood up, looking frightened. "Where were you hiding to see all that? You know more than you should." Holmes laughed and gave the man his card. "I'm not the murderer, Rance. I'm a detective. What did you do next?" Rance sat back down, still confused. "I blew my whistle, which brought 3 other officers, but the street was empty then, except for one guy." "Who?" Holmes asked sharply. "Just some drunk," Rance grinned. "I've seen many drunks, but this one was far gone. He was leaning against the railings, singing at the top of his lungs. He couldn't even stand, let alone help." "What did he look like?" "He was just a very drunk man," Rance said, annoyed. "We would have arrested him if we weren't so busy with the body." "His face, his clothes," Holmes pressed. "I noticed them because me and my partner had to prop him up. He was tall, with a red face and the lower part of it muffled up." "That's enough!" Holmes cried. "What happened to him?" "He probably found his way home," the policeman said. "We had more important things to do." "Was he wearing a brown coat? Did he have a whip?" "A brown coat, yes, but no whip." "He must have left it," Holmes muttered. He gave the constable the gold coin and stood up. "I'm afraid, Rance, you missed a great opportunity. That man you held in your hands was the murderer we are looking for. There's no use arguing. I know it's true. Come on, Doctor." We left the bewildered constable and walked back to our cab. "That fool," Holmes said bitterly as we drove away, "to have such luck and throw it away." "I'm still confused," I said. "Why would a murderer come back to the house? That's not what criminals do." "The ring, Watson! He came back for the ring. If we have no other way to catch him, we'll use the ring as bait. I'll catch him, Doctor." "I'd bet on it. Thank you for coming with me. If not for you, I might have missed this study in Scarlet. A bit of art talk, eh? There's the scarlet thread of murder running through the dull colors of life, and our job is to unravel it." Holmes leaned back and began singing happily while I sat in silence, amazed by how his mind worked.